in the upper 30s. Overnight tonight, a few more clouds coming in. Could be some snow flurry action. Mid-20s tonight, and then sunny on Wednesday, upper 30s, but very windy. Program support comes from University College Part-Time Undergraduate Studies. Part-time study, full-time success. Register for Spring Ahead 3. Classes start January 10th at the Fairfield and Stanford campuses and online. Sacred Heart University, University College.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Steve Inskeep.
And I'm Renee Montaigne. And here in California, the latest political trend isn't just retro, it's vintage. Jerry Brown, the Democrat who's been as governor, mayor, and state attorney general, is back in the State House. He took the oath of office in a short, no-frills ceremony. John Myers of member station KQED reports Governor Brown faces a state long on problems and short on politicians willing to compromise.
Rarely does a politician's actual oath of office ever seem newsworthy or poignant. But for Jerry Brown, the once and now again governor of California, you have to always expect the unexpected.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation.
Without any mental reservation.
Or?
Really, no mental reservations.
With California deep in red ink and still reeling from the recession, that kind of gut check is one Jerry Brown may need to make several times this year. The state faces a budget shortfall over the next year and a half of as much as $28 billion, and that despite everything from deep cuts to taxes. After Brown took the oath of office, standing beside his wife, Ann, the governor said no budget plan will work if partisan gridlock continues to dominate.
There's no other way forward. In this crisis, we simply have to learn to work together. As Californians first, members of a political party second.
What's striking about that observation is that it's the same one made by his predecessor, now former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger called such efforts post-partisan. But he arrived at that enlightened state late in his tenure and saw it as something new. Jerry Brown, who was last governor in 1983, pledged it on day one, and he likened it to the way things used to be.
Every Californian is heir to some form of powerful tradition, some history of overcoming challenges much more daunting than the ones we face today. From the native peoples who survived a total transformation in their way of life, to the most recent arrival, stories of courage abound.
Brown's task now is convincing recalcitrant lawmakers to summon that courage. Legislative leaders say the new governor has been meeting with them privately since winning the election back in November. Democrat John Perez of Los Angeles is the Speaker of the California State Assembly.
We're very sober about understanding the challenges that we face. It's going to be difficult to find the solutions that make the most sense, but we're committed to working with the governor and doing that.
But Republicans in Sacramento, while appreciative of Governor Jerry Brown's willingness to talk, still seem unconvinced. The governor has not made any official statement, but most political and policy insiders say they now expect Brown will ask voters to weigh in later this year on the budget. And all expect him to ask for an extension of temporary tax increases. Connie Conway is the Republican leader of the State Assembly.
No, more taxes. Make do with what we have. I think that's what most Californians are having to do with their own budget.
Jerry Brown seems to have accepted that very little other than the budget will be on his agenda for the foreseeable future. But Brown seems, if not unfazed, undaunted.
With realism, with confidence, with loyalty, in the deepest sense, to California, to my forebears, and to posterity, as our song says, California, here I come, right back where I started from.
That path begins next Monday when he unveils his state budget. For NPR News, I'm John Myers in Sacramento.
In recent months, we've been reporting on this program about a growing threat facing many countries, cyber attacks. And today we're going to hear about the first country that actually experienced a cyber war, the Baltic nation of Estonia. In 2007, government, financial, and media computer networks were hit by a series of paralyzing attacks. Estonian authorities suspect Russia was responsible. Now, Estonia is a model for how a country might defend itself. NPR's Tom Jelton reports.
Estonia knows what it's like to be invaded. During the Second World War, Soviet troops occupied the country, then the Germans, then the Soviets again. Each occupation was fiercely resisted. After the war, Estonia became part of the Soviet Union. Unwillingly, it broke free at its first opportunity in 1991, and this time it's determined to remain independent. The government has organized what it calls a Total Defense League, mostly civilians ready to mobilize in the event of any foreign threat. Jaak Aaviksoo is Estonia's defense minister.
Insurgent activity against an occupying force sits deep in the Estonian understanding of fighting back. And I think that builds the foundation for understanding total defense in the case of Estonia.
Total defense, the idea being that defending the country is the responsibility of the whole population, not just the military. And for Estonia, that includes the defense of computer networks. The country is one of the most wired on the planet. And having been the target of one cyber attack already, they know how damaging another could be. Defense Minister Aaviksoo, interviewed while visiting Washington recently, says an elite division of the country's Total Defense League is dedicated to cybersecurity.
We have created a Cyber Defense League that brings together people, specialists in cyber defense, who work in the private sector as well as in different government agencies. They bring it together to prepare for possible cyber contingencies.
No democratic country in the world has a cyber defense force like this. Programmers and software engineers ready to put themselves under a single paramilitary command to defend the country's cyber infrastructure. Defense Minister Aaviksoo says it's so important for Estonia to have a skilled cyber army that the authorities there may even institute a draft to make sure every cyber expert in the country is available in a true national emergency.
We are thinking of introducing this conscript service, the cyber service. This is an idea that we've been playing around. We don't have neither mechanisms nor laws in place for that, but that might be one option.
In the United States, most top cybersecurity experts work in the private sector and are not available for government duty even in times of an emergency. Stuart Baker tried to coordinate cyber defense efforts at the Department of Homeland Security under President George W. Bush. A cyber defense league like Estonia's, he says, would have been really helpful.
It means people are keeping their skills up to date in the private sector, and those skills can be called on in an emergency, which is the only time the government really needs all of them. That's a very sensible approach, and I wish we had the same kind of relationship with our IT sector that they obviously have with theirs.
When top cybersecurity experts are willing, if necessary, to put themselves under a single paramilitary command, the country's computer networks can be defended more efficiently. In Estonia, as in the United States, the information technology underpinning the power, transportation, and financial systems is largely in private hands. With the defense of that IT infrastructure split between government and private industry, there are always security gaps. But Stuart Baker says it's been hard in the United States to promote public-private collaboration in cybersecurity.
The people who work in IT in the U.S. tend to be quite suspicious of government. Maybe they think that they're so much smarter than governments that they'll be able to handle an attack on their own, but there's a standoffishness that makes it much harder to have that kind of easy confidence that you can call on people in an emergency and that they'll respond.
Estonia's first-hand experience with cyber war has probably made it easier for authorities there to implement innovative security measures, from its Cyber Defense League to a new requirement for using digital IDs to carry out many online transactions. Many countries would face resistance to such efforts. But that only means Estonia now has the opportunity to serve as a model, and NATO has recognized Estonia's efforts. The Alliance's new Cyber Defense Excellence Center is headquartered there. Tom Gelton, NPR News, Washington.
It's 8:49, 29 degrees, partly sunny, with temperatures today in the upper 30s, mix of clouds and sunshine today. more clouds coming in for the evening, and there could be a few flurries overnight with temperatures in the mid-20s. A mostly sunny Wednesday, the upper 30s again. However, the winds will be gusting up to 25 at times from the northwest, so it will feel a good deal chillier. And then for Thursday, back to clouds for the most part, temperatures in the mid-30s. Ahead on Morning Edition, we'll take a closer look at the historical relationship between Christians and Muslims in Egypt. This in the wake of the recent bombing of a church in Alexandria. That's